Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lecture 2 of Week 5 of this course on anti doping awareness for sports. In this lecture, we will be dealing with the WADA accredited laboratories. Simply put, it means that once the dope sample is collected, whether it's a urine, it's blood, or dried blood spot, it has to be sent for analysis and it cannot be sent for analysis to any local pathological laboratory. It has to be sent under proper chain of custody to a WADA accredited laboratory where the analysis of the sample will be done and the results will be published. I will be covering this lecture under the following outline: Introduction to WADA, a brief history, purpose of WADA laboratories. There is a document which is called International Standards for Laboratories under the WADA code. We will talk about the WADA accreditation process and how laboratories can apply for them, what are the criteria for the candidate laboratories, and what is a laboratory probationary phase. We will talk about how laboratories can get full accreditation process, and we will talk about the various analytical testing procedures which the laboratories are supposed to follow. We will also be talking about something called WADA External Quality Assessment Scheme, or EQAS. We will also talk about the Athlete Biological Passport Program. We will also talk about something called research and development, which the laboratories are supposed to undertake for maintaining their accreditation status. There are certain code of ethics which the laboratories are each WADA accredited laboratory is supposed to follow a code of ethics, and we will discuss what the code of ethics is. We will talk about how the laboratories are monitored and audited. We will talk about the procedures for handling non-conformities. We will talk about the sample analysis and result management, and we will talk about the consequences of non-compliance of any of the laid down procedures. We will finally finish with a take-home message and conclusion. So, brief history of WADA. The World Anti-Doping Agency was established in 1999 in Lausanne, Switzerland. It promotes and coordinates anti-doping activities globally. It develops the standard for doping control in sports. Basically, it's the ultimate authority for doping control in sports. Laboratories are accredited by WADA, and this ensures compliance to the WADA code and the international standards. The aim is to protect athletes and the integrity of sport. The first international standards for laboratories was adopted in November 2002. So what is the purpose of these WADA accredited laboratories? They analyze the biological samples, urine, blood, dried blood spot, etc. for prohibited substances. They ensure that the results are reliable and accurate. They facilitate harmonization in sample analysis globally. This means that WADA accredited laboratories need not be present in the same country as the sample collection. Suppose a sample collection is happening in country A, and country A does not have a WADA accredited laboratory. So the samples will be sent to any other country where there is a WADA accredited laboratory present. This is possible because the doping control station, the doping transport courier, and the WADA accredited laboratory follow same rigidly set procedures worldwide. They operate under strict guidelines set by the International Standard for Laboratories. They contribute to fair competition in sport and help uphold anti-doping rules. All right, so now we talk about something called International Standard for Laboratories. This is the Bible which the laboratories are supposed to follow, and it's a mandatory standard for laboratories. Everything is documented there, right from how to receive the sample, how to open the sample, how to test the sample, how to store the sample, how to give the results. Anything under the sun related to doping control and WADA accredited laboratories is covered under the ISL. It was first implemented in 2002 and has been revised several times since then. ISL ensures that the laboratories meet technical competence and quality. It sets out guidelines for sample custody, analysis, and results management. It also provides a framework for laboratory accreditation and athlete biological passport approval. Now, be aware that laboratory accreditation is a different process and accreditation for athlete biological passport is a separate process. ISL ensures standardized anti-doping tests worldwide, countrywide, nationwide, everywhere. There is a process called WADA accreditation process which the laboratories are supposed to go through. Labs will express their interest by submitting an application to WADA. Now, this application must be submitted after ensuring that there are certain strict criteria which the labs are supposed to meet, including ISO, IEC 17025 or equivalent standards. Once you meet these standards, then only you can submit your application to WADA. They are required to submit business plans and letters of support. Now, these letters of support must be submitted by the host nation and any other nation whose samples are being handled by this particular laboratory. The laboratory must have performed analysis of at least 3,000 samples annually. If this application process and vetting process is successful, the labs will enter into a probationary period. Accreditation is granted upon satisfactory performance in the CNS. There are certain criteria which the candidate laboratories must meet. They must provide letters of support from anti-doping organizations, from the host country and from other nations whose samples they are handling. They must be guaranteed financial resources for at least 3 years. They must submit a detailed business plan. They must ensure that there is adequate staff, adequate facilities, and equipment for conduct of all the tests under the WADA code. They must comply with the Code of Ethics. And ISO IEC 17025 accreditation is mandatory. After this process, the laboratories enter what is called a laboratory probationary phase. This lasts for at least 12 months. Now, during this 12 months, they must analyze at least 15 blind EQAS samples. They must conduct research and development in anti-doping. They must demonstrate knowledge sharing and cooperation with other labs worldwide. They must demonstrate strict adherence to ISL standards during the probation and even afterwards. This progress is monitored by WADA through periodic assessments. Once the probationary process is complete, the labs are awarded full accreditation. The story does not end here, ladies and gentlemen. Accreditation is only the first hurdle which is supposed to be crossed, because WADA will conduct regular monitoring and assessments. The laboratories are evaluated on basis of performance in the EQAS scheme. They must maintain their ISO IEC 17025 accreditation. Regular re-accreditation is required to continue operations, and failure to meet the standards can lead to suspension. As per the WADA code and the ISL, there are certain analytical test procedures which the labs are supposed to perform. They perform testing for prohibited substances in the biological samples which are submitted. For the testing methods and protocols to be used, they will follow strictly WADA's technical documentation. They will do an initial screening test to identify suspicious samples, and they will then do confirmation procedures to verify the presence of banned substances. During the testing process, labs should ensure proper custody and integrity of the samples throughout the process. And they must make sure that the analytical results must be accurate and reliable. There is a scheme operated by the WADA called External Quality Assessment Scheme. This is a program to evaluate laboratory performance. What they do is they send samples to WADA accredited laboratories for analysis. Sometimes the samples are sent blind. That means only the laboratory doesn't know the results. Sometimes the samples are sent double blind. That means even WADA and the laboratory, both of them do not know the results of the analysis. They will assess the accuracy and the reliability of test results. The labs must ensure that they participate regularly in EQAS to maintain accreditation. Poor performance in EQAS can lead to suspension or revocation of accreditation. WADA will review the EQAS results for all accredited labs and decide whether to continue, suspend, or remove the accreditation process of these labs. There is something called Athlete Biological Passport Program, which monitors biological markers over time. These labs are detecting various samples of the same athlete in a periodic fashion to try and identify if there are any changes or if there are any variations in the test results, which may point to doping in an indirect manner. Accredited ABP labs have to meet additional criteria. An approval for ABP analysis is a separate process which is different from WADA accreditation. ABP enhances detection of blood manipulation and banned substances by athletes. It's more accurate and more reliable procedure because it conducts tests on multiple samples of the same athlete over a period of time. An athlete biological passport program is part of the broader anti-doping strategy. R&D, research and development. Accredited labs are required to engage in R&D activities. It is a mandatory part of the accreditation process and for maintaining the accreditation. The focus is on anti-doping science and on newer innovative testing methods. 7% of the annual budget is required to be allocated for research. And during the probationary period of 12 months, labs must implement at least 2 research projects. WADA will review the lab's research output as part of their accreditation, evaluation, and re-accreditation process. And collaboration with other labs is encouraged. There is a rigid and specific code of ethics which is in place for laboratories, and labs must strictly comply with the WADA code of ethics. They must uphold the integrity of the anti-doping program in true letter and spirit. They must avoid conflicts of interest in all aspects of their operations. Labs must not test samples from athletes or companies directly or act on their behalf or certify samples on their behalf. They must ensure impartiality and independence. This means that the WADA accredited laboratories must be completely independent from the government, from the national anti-doping organizations, and from the federations which govern the sports. Any breach of ethics can lead to a loss of accreditation. Laboratory monitoring and auditing. WADA monitors labs continuously through performance reviews. The laboratories must regularly submit reports on EQAS performance and other data. If they do not comply to any of these aspects of the WADA code and the ISL, the accreditation can be suspended for non-compliance. Off-site and on-site assessments are conducted periodically. And please understand, re-accreditation is required to maintain the WADA accreditation status. It means once a lab is accredited by WADA, it is not accredited for life. A process is there which will ensure that the accreditation is monitored regularly, and there is a process which is there to ensure that the accreditation is maintained regularly. Monitoring ensures that the laboratories maintain the highest possible standards. As always, there may be non-conformities during the testing process. They are defined as failures to meet ISL standards. There is a proper guideline which is given, and labs must ensure that they identify and correct these issues promptly. Once they identify and correct these issues, corrective action reports are required to be submitted for review by WADA. Periodic nonconformities can lead to restrictions or suspension of accreditation. Continuous improvement is encouraged through feedback from WADA. Non-conformities are reviewed during assessments by WADA. Sample analysis and results management. Labs must ensure proper sample handling and custody. That goes without saying. Sample analysis includes detection of banned substances in the or prohibited methods in the sample. The results are reported to the anti-doping organizations for their further action, because the WADA accredited laboratories cannot act on any abnormal test reports. The laboratories must try to avoid false positives and false negatives. There are some strict guidelines which the laboratories are supposed to follow for reporting adverse findings. And proper result management ensures that there is fairness in the doping control process. There is a specific document which deals with consequences of non-compliance. Laboratories may face suspension or revocation of accreditation in case of non-compliance with any of the standards prescribed in the ISL and the WADA code. Non-compliance with ISL or EQAS results in immediate action. Labs are free to appeal the decisions or to seek re-accreditation, but there is a general cooling off period usually. Continuous poor performance leads to permanent revocation of the license. WADA has the authority to remove non-compliant labs. Compliance ensures the credibility of anti-doping tests. To conclude, WADA accredited laboratories are essential to global sports integrity, and they are an essential component in the fight against doping globally. Adherence to the international standards for testing ensures accurate and reliable anti-doping tests. EQA's participation and monitoring is mandatory and ensures continuous quality. Labs play a critical role in upholding clean sports and athlete fairness. Ongoing research and development by the laboratories is mandatory and helps in advancing anti-doping science. Compliance with WADA standards is mandatory for all accredited laboratories. Accreditation of laboratories is a process, and all laboratories have to go through that process. As of September 2024, there are 30 WADA accredited laboratories throughout the world. These are my references, ladies and gentlemen. I strongly urge you to go through them if you are interested in delving deeper into this subject. WADA accredited laboratories is an important topic, and awareness about the same is mandatory for anybody who is interested in doping and anti-doping. I seem to have finished, ladies and gentlemen. There will be an assessment which will have to be submitted online within the stipulated period. I thank you for your time and your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening, and Jai Hind.